All right, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our Signworld webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here at Signworld, and I will be the moderator for our webinar today. So for those of you who have not attended one of these or watched a recording, just a very quick overview to give you an idea of the format to what to expect. First off, we're going to kick things off with our owners giving an overview of themselves and their business and their background so you can kind of understand a little bit about each of them. And then we're going to turn the floor over to you as participants in a rotating format to each individually ask one question in which each of the owners will give their own individual perspective. So you'll have multiple responses to your question. We'll rotate through each of you. I do see about 6 of you on the line currently at the moment, so might only have time for one question. So think about it now, what that question might be. Maybe others might ask some other questions that are top of mind for you, but we do ask you to keep it to one question when it's your turn. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick it over to our owners to give themselves a brief introduction about themselves and their business. Stephanie, may I start with you, please?
Sure. I'm Stephanie McEwen from Signcraft Solutions. We're in the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill, North Carolina Metroplex area. We've been doing business just over 13 years. We are currently in a facility that has a little over 6,700 square feet, but that's a split area. At the end of October, we will be giving up some of that space and expand over and have 10,000 square feet. We are thrilled to death about that. There'll also be an additional 5,000 feet of fenced-in side yard. It's the perfect situation that we've been trying to get for quite some time, and we're happy about that. Bob and I own the company. There are 14 other employees. We've got our eyes on a couple of other people. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a few more. Sales this year will probably be about 1.9 million. We missed a $250,000 bid just recently that broke our heart. We thought we had it for sure. The only reason we missed it is they changed the qualifications and required that we were UL certified, and we were not. We could not do it fast enough to make that be a possibility. Biggest customer recently was 200,000. That was a small business complex, a couple of monuments, 14 sets of channel letters, quite a bit of interior graphics and wraps and dimensional letters throughout. Just a kind of a fun little area. That was a fun job to do. My background, I was previously a part-time, I was in occupational therapy. Full-time, I was a mom and raised 4 kids that have turned out amazing. I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial bug and wanted to have some kind of a business with the kids. I was envisioning something like a snow cone shack that they could work at. I wasn't imagining a $2 million company like this, but it's been kind of a fun thing to see it grow and develop, and we're thrilled with that. Bob's background, he came from Texas Instruments, Defense Systems, General Electric, and Genworth Financial were kind of his backgrounds. My next career is to be a full-time grandma.
Bet you're looking forward to that. Very exciting. And I have no doubt that you're going to find another $200,000 customer and get over that 2 million mark. So the year ain't over yet, Stephanie.
Yeah, we're working on it.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Steve, if we can go to you next for an introduction, please.
Awesome. My name is Steve. I'm the owner of Las Vegas Custom Signs, located in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we are currently coming up on our 2 years in business. January, I think it's the 10th, marks 2 years in business for us. Right now we're in 3,500 square feet or so. We've got about 1,200 square feet of nice open inside air conditioned space. And then the remainder is our warehouse. We've got a good 12 by 12 door. It's a good setup. We've got a little bit more space than what they recommend right at the onset. But I thought through whether or not I wanted to move at the 3-year mark, and I decided to get just a little extra square footage at the onset, and I'm glad we did. We've added a CNC router to the initial equipment roll that Signworld recommends, and I'm glad to have the extra square footage around it. Right now, I've got 3 employees plus myself. The 3 guys are all pretty well jack of all trades. I can send them on installs. All 3 can run the router. All 3 can run the printer. All 3 are reasonable with the software and design. So we've got 3 guys going right now. And then for 2022, we're looking at, so we started the year with our sales goal at 400, which would have been a 150 increase over what we did last year. And I have found that that goal was maybe on the conservative side as we hit it at the beginning of this month. And so we're kind of repositioning, and I think I'm going to press for 550 this year, which was a pleasant surprise for me. And then biggest customer recently, we've got the biggest order that we've ever placed. We actually just placed with Creech Air Force Base out here. They've got a new building that they built, and we're going to do about 55,000 in signs inside of that new building. And a bunch of it is really beautiful high density urethane plaques to represent all of the ranks. And we're really excited about that. They're a repeat customer of ours. This will be our 4th project for them, and also the largest. But our biggest customer, the one that will do the most dollar figure throughout the year, is a company called Express Cakes. And they do, I don't know if you've heard of Buddy Velastro from the TLC show, Cake Boss, but he's kind of moved on from the show, and they're starting a chain of restaurants called Boss Cafe. They've got a chain of cake dispensing kiosks and food dispensing kiosks. And this year we'll probably do about 100,000 with them in opening those restaurants and in wrapping and prepping those kiosks for the floor. So that's our biggest customers and our biggest sale. And then me personally, I'm a younger man. I've got 2 young kids. Before this, I worked at a car dealership as a salesman right out of college. It only took me a little while to learn that there was no future in that. And so I moved on to a corporate ladder. I was working for Wells Fargo, and I had been there about 3 years and had been promoted 3 times. And about a month after my most recent promotion, they had to scale back. And even though I was the best at my job in the entire company, I had the best numbers, I was the first one laid off because of least tenure. And it really agitated me that they, even being number 1 at my job, they just went, oh, you've got the least tenure, you're on the chopping block. And so it was at that point that I decided to go for self-employment. And so I spent about 5 years in the trucking and transport industry, and I had a couple plans to grow and scale. But that model, I quickly saw holes in it that I didn't like. And so I started looking at other business models. And that's when I was introduced to Signworld. And it just checked many, many boxes for me, and was frankly a fairly easy decision for me. So that's a little bit of my background.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Steve. We're thrilled that you joined us, and congrats on adjusting your 2022 numbers. That's very exciting. And as you talk about the heat in Vegas, I'm thinking of that warehouse with no air conditioning in the back. It's got to get a little warm back there sometimes. So very good.
Bit, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Dick, let's go to you for an introduction, please.
Sure. My name is Dick Cassidy, and I am the owner of Image 212 Degrees, the DFW sign company. And we are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, just about 10 to 15 minutes from the DFW airport. So kind of in the center of the Metroplex. We opened our doors February 1st, 2020, I guess, technically. So we've been in business about 2.5 years now. And we just moved into a new facility here about 4 months ago. So our new facility is just under 8,000 square feet. And I have 6 full-time employees plus myself. And then I have a couple of 1099 installers and a couple of 1099 fabricators that we work with on a regular basis. So, the team's bigger than the 6, I guess, because we have a ton of extra support people to help us out. Let's see, 2022 sales projections. Projections are to hit 1.8 million for the year. And we should do that if all goes as planned. Our biggest customer that we recently completed the project with is a design firm here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we just did some PVC signage for 3 schools. So it's a pretty decent sized job. It was a fun little job where they came up with this elaborate design. We printed and cut out a bunch of plastic pieces and stuck them on a wall. So that was unique and different and fun, but that was a pretty nice project for us. That was about, I think, $66,000 for the 3 schools. My career before I started in the sign and graphics business, I met Kim Kent on one of these calls about 3 years ago. I had just retired from a 30-year career in medical devices. And I spent 30 years in medical devices where I was running some medical device companies. So that is a little bit about my background.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dick. And for our featured guests here, Dick's going to be on a TV program this weekend highlighting his shop. And I've taken notes of who's joining the call. I'll definitely make sure I share a link so you can all see it. It's a great little video. Very proud of Mr. Cassidy and what he's done there. All right, let's move on to Jack, if you can give an overview of yourself, please.
I'm Jack Werner. I joined Signworld 27 years ago, back in 1995, as a Signworld operation, starting in 1,200 square feet with 1 employee. Ended up 10 years later in 5,000 square feet with a staff of 11, doing about 1.3 million in sales. My largest customer was a regional developer for Subway with 200 locations. They were annually about $250,000 of business a year. I then joined Ken, our founder, at the corporate office, kind of a partnership arrangement, learning his end of the business, finished buying him out 8 years ago, 2014, and took over as president owner of Signworld. So when I answer questions today, if it goes more to my experience running an operation, I'll speak from that perspective. If it goes more to training and policy, things like that, I'll speak from that perspective.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. And none of us would be here today without our founder, Ken. Please give an introduction to you.
Morning, everybody. Afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you. I'm the founder of Signworld 35 years ago here in Honolulu, Hawaii, where I still am. I can look out my window right now and still see my very first location, about 2,500 square feet. My largest customer was Bank of Hawaii. Over the years, I did millions and millions of dollars worth of signs with them. All kinds, indoor, outdoor, branch, headquarters, vehicles, ship signs as far away as one. The best part of the business, I think, is the idea of very few employees and very few customers. Knowing that 80% of your money will come from less than 20 people who will become your friends, and knowing that to have a $2 million business like Stephanie has and Dick Cassidy are soon approaching, you only need, the benchmark is 14 employees for a $2 million business. Anything else that you're looking at, folks, is going to involve 100 employees if you want to have a $2 million business. Today, that's the choke point. That's the hard part, is finding enough employees. So if you have a business that starts out with just 1 employee, and as you grow, you need very few employees. In the case of Stephanie, I think $2 million, and you have 14 employees, Stephanie?
Yes.
Right on benchmark. Okay, thanks, Jeannie.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ken. All right, now it's time to turn the floor over to our participants. So I'll call your name, and if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question. We're going to start with Theo today. If you can take yourself off mute, we're ready for your question for the group.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Always love these conversations. I live in the northeast part of Wisconsin, partway between Appleton and Green Bay. So you can probably imagine, yes, I am a Packers fan. It's a good thing. The question I have, and I've done a number of validation calls in the last week, I'm trying to get my head wrapped around installation and what that means. And, I'll just share with you, I just turned 59. I'm not sure I want to be climbing up on ladders very much longer doing installs. So I'm trying to understand the install game and thoughts and ideas and direction there.
Very good. All right, well, let's start with our newest owner. Steve, do you ever get up on a ladder and do an installation yourself? Tell us how you do that in your operation.
More than I probably should. But the truth of the matter is it's not a necessity, other than I'm a hands-on guy and I kind of like it. So when it comes to vinyl installation and interior lobby sign installation, my first hire, Ephraim, is really a rock star. He's really got a good knack and a good eye for detail, and he's a relatively handy guy, not unfamiliar with a drill and a ladder and a normal set of tools. So it was nice from day one knowing that I could send him on any vinyl install and any lobby sign install, and he would be able to knock it out. As far as bigger signage installs, exterior dimensional lettering, anything like that, where it starts to get a little bit up in the air, we are looking in the near future, probably at adding a bucket truck and an installer. It's definitely something that we're looking at. But in the meantime, we've been able to make relationships with two separate guys who that's what they do. They contract install signs.
You outsource that, Steve, is what I'm hearing, correct?
Correct. Yeah. One's got a 30-foot truck and the other's got a 35 and an 80-foot truck. And I call them with a proof and a sign and a date, and they get it done.
Sure. Typically, what's that do for your margin? Just ballpark it.
I mark up their installation probably a little more conservatively than I should. But if they sell me the installation for $100, I'm going to sell it to the customer for $150. And it took me probably about 6 months to really understand how they were pricing jobs and get to a point where I didn't have to call them with every job and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What's it going to cost? And today I can price a job without reaching out to them and know where they're going to be at reasonably accurately.
Makes sense.
Very. Dick, let's think back to when you first started. You contract that out? Did you guys do it themselves? Tell us a little bit about how you've handled installation in your business.
Yeah, I hate heights, so I'm not, even though I've been on a ladder and I've been on a lift, that's definitely not something I enjoy. So I learned quickly that there's a lot of people that love to get up on a ladder and love to get up on a lift and do those things. So I'll always outsource that. And we have our internal. And I honestly, I don't want any of my internal employees. I'll have them go up on a ladder, but if it's much more than a ladder or a lift, I won't. Really don't want them doing that. So we'll outsource that for people that are getting high in the sky. I got one of my installers that was up wrapping the side of AT&T Stadium, 150 feet up in the air. There's no way I'm ever doing something like that. So, but there's plenty of people that are willing to do that, and you can make, like Steve said, you can make a decent profit for really not doing anything other than, connecting some people to do that. It just
becomes part of the whole project management process.
Yeah, for sure. And there's very, there's obviously, there's several sign companies that do everything in-house, but I would say the large majority, if there's 500 sign companies, 600 sign companies in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, and maybe there's 20 that do everything. Most of the time, there's people are outsourcing that stuff to one of the other the 20 big ones in town. So
very good, thank you, Dick. Stephanie, you and Bob ever get up on a step ladder? Tell us a little bit about how you've done installs.
I don't. Bob's been on the lift, I don't know, a couple of times in the first year or so, but that's been about it. And I would strongly recommend that you outsource that. It is difficult to get good installers in some markets. Our area became one of those areas, so we had to take some things into our own hands, but we fought it for many years before we gave in and got a bucket truck. I will tell you from experience, your workers' comp, your insurance, your liability, the risks, there are just so many things that you really need to know what you're doing to be jumping into that, and I wouldn't be quick to do that. We've committed to leasing a truck, so our truck will never be more than 7 years old, because all of the installers I know, their trucks are breaking down all the time. That's something that supports my employees' life. I don't want it breaking down while they're using it. So we take that really, really seriously. So subcontracting is great. We can almost double what our subcontractors will charge. And the bucket truck goes up 48 feet. There's always something that needs a crane or something bigger. So we keep relationships with people that have specialty skills that we don't have. And it's wise to do that.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Jack, your thoughts?
A couple things for you, Theo. One, if 98% of the signs in the world are indoors, that means their ground level or step ladder level lower, and even a lot of signs outside are. up. So simplify it a bit. There are some Signworld owners that don't take on projects that require ladders, require lifts, and just say, I'm going to avoid that. You're not going to do it yourself. You're going to make a lot more money running the business and hiring staff to do that and managing the projects. Might you get out there on a couple of jobs early in the days to understand it and how to do it, but beyond that, that's not your role and your main thing in business.
Yeah, that makes sense, Jack.
Very good. Ken, any additional comments?
Chris, Theo, don't do it. You're 59 years old. Don't do it.
Oh, trust me,
You-
Ken.
You can run a
Trust me.
fine sign business. Your rule, your golden rule is owners do not install signs. Okay, you can
Very
do
good.
it.
We'll leave it at that. Very good. All right, let's go to our
Thanks,
next guest.
thanks, everyone. That's good stuff.
Thank you, Theo. Let's go ahead to our next participant, Stacy. Let's take you, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question for the group today.
How you doing? Just want to ask one question. When you guys miss bids and you don't have the funds you expected to have, what strategies do you use so that you can continue to pay your workers?
Did I hear correct about cash flow and making sure you have enough cash flow to pay workers? I missed the first part.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So thinking about the early parts of your business and cash flow and making sure you had enough to pay your employees as you have deposits for potential jobs, waiting for payments from customers. Talk a little bit about how you manage that. Let's go ahead and start with you first, Dick.
So one of the things that I did early on was I decided to put in a little bit more cash into the business to have so that I never ran into that as a concern. And I know, I actually went and toured 5 sign franchises, did discovery days with 5 sign franchises before signing up with Signworld. And they all had a various, recommendation to have cash, free cash flow on hand. And the Signworld amount, I think, is certainly can be done. I mean, obviously, it's a proven formula that can be done with the amount that we have. And I think the I'm gonna call it be about 45 minutes, half hour. Sorry. So all the different franchises made certain recommendations, and what Signworld recommends for their free cash flow is, I think, is reasonable and definitely can be done. I decided to put a little bit more into it up front because I didn't want to be in a situation where I was afraid to go after a job, or that I was going to get into a pinch where I was going to miss payroll or something like that. And I was lucky enough that I had some extra cash to put into it. So that's kind of that was a decision I made early on, because I didn't want to be looking over my shoulder every week or every month about whether we could make a payroll or make bid on a job or not bid on a job and not have enough materials. So that was my philosophy, maybe different than some, but that's what I decided on.
Thank you, Dick. How about you, Stephanie? Thinking back to the beginning years.
Yeah, for us, I continued to work. In fact, I'd been working part-time. I worked full-time. That covered insurance and some basic things like that, and just made sure that we were okay. I think that what I've learned is that you'll spend whatever you have. So you've got to kind of know yourself and know if you can follow a budget. If you know it's tight this month, you're going to work extra hard to make that. You kind of need that motivation to say, this is my goal, and not say, well, I've got an extra 10,000 here, I'll just pull it out, and start doing that every month, and you'll sink. So you've kind of not know your style, and just throwing more money at a business doesn't always work. You've got to listen to what you're being told, go out, get the business, and make it profitable as soon as possible.
Very good. Thank you. Steve, how about you? Your thoughts?
So a couple of thoughts on that particular concern. When I signed up with Signworld, I think they recommended about 30K in liquid working capital above and beyond your startup expenses. And I wound up putting about 45 in just to make sure that I had enough. I put some extra in. And we did have some honestly close months where once all the bills, payroll, everything was paid, it was lower balance in the checking account than I would have liked per se. But a couple things you can do to combat that. The first is be stiff and rigid about getting a deposit. Don't float big projects out of your own budget. Make sure that you're good about getting deposits on orders. There's a lot of value there. One is your cash flow, and the other is making sure that you have a customer with skin in the game with your company. So I would say the deposit.
Sorry to interrupt. What's the ballpark on a deposit up front on jobs? 30%, 50%?
So we do 50% across the board. And I will say at this point, we've got some of our very regular customers that we're not quite on top of that with some of the little orders. But anytime we work with someone brand new, it's 50% paid before we begin any work, before we send artwork, before we do just about anything. We may go do a survey, but yeah, 50% upfront and the other half collected at installation is our goal with every job that we do. And so that definitely helps with cash flow. The other thing that comes to mind, you said specifically, if you miss a bid, and I know this is market to market, but in my market, if I have a bid that I don't get, I am totally okay with that. If they say it's price, I am not inclined to run down my price to gain their business. In my market, at least, if I turn down that job and that customer that wants to haggle price and wants to negotiate and wants to pay everything at the end, I can wait about 10 minutes and my phone's going to ring again. And I'm going to have another client that will work better for the clientele that I'm looking for my business. And a lot of that is not my effort, is not my genius in marketing, but really it's the product of the partners that built my website and managed my SEO and managed my pay-per-click and helped me with those things, because I have zero mind for it. But I can honestly say right now, I have leads that I haven't even gotten to. I say this to my shame. I have leads that I haven't even gotten to. And I'm genuinely at a point where if a customer wants to push the deposit or wants to, nickel and dime price down, I just say, hey, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to go with the next client. So yeah, deposits help your cash flow, and picking and choosing your clients if you're in a market where you can do that will help as well.
Very good. Thank you for those stats, Steve. Jack?
It's kind of a dance. You need to charge full price, not discount. You need to keep the workflow busy so your staff never runs out of work. You need to make sure you're collecting the deposit. And in some cases where your deposit is less than half the price of the full project, in other words, you've outsourced it and you're working on the site. Perhaps you're working on progress payments, so you always stay cash positive. You got to be diligent on collecting the balance due, that you don't have accounts receivable. So it's keeping yourself accountable and holding yourself to what did I commit to, of getting enough business in to keep my staff busy. My staff is busy every hour of every day. They're a profit center. They're not an expense. You've got to stay in charge of your business and have us help you keep yourself accountable to it. Have you working on the business, not busy working in the business.
Thank you, Jack. Ken, any comments?
As Steve Livingston said it so well, if you diligently collect the 50% deposit and you demand full payment upon the receipt of the sign, installation of the sign, you'll never miss payroll. You'll never miss payroll. It's those who get lackadaisical. It's those who don't collect the deposit. It's those who are still chasing their money a month, 2 months, 3 months after the sign project is all done. They're the ones that worry about meeting payroll. It's up to you. It's up to you. We teach 50% deposit.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, let's go to our next participant. John, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Sure. I am from Ellicott City, Maryland. We're sort of in between DC and Baltimore. And this is actually my first interaction. So thank you all for coming to my intro call. So just a quick question, because I'm just getting into this. How long did it take you to get comfortably cash positive, and what was the biggest challenge during that period for you?
Okay. So how many months did it take you to get cash positive and the challenge to get there? Let's go ahead and start with you, Steve.
So I'm really glad you followed up with that question. I almost interrupted before we moved to the next question. I was going to mention it was in month 4 that we were sales outpaced what we spent for the month. So it wasn't actual jobs paid, but month 4 was where we went, okay, we sold 25 something and our bills were 17 something. And I know now that I'm floating. I'm above water. In a couple months when these start to pay and I keep this going, we're going to be fine. So there's that piece. As far as comfortably cash flow positive, I don't know what that looks like. I probably need to set a goal there. Just to be very candid with you, I try to keep 30,000 as my zero in my checking account. That way, if we had to sit still for 30 straight days and not close a single job, I could pay everybody, pay all the bills, and be ready to work another month. So that's kind of my logic on it. The other thing that has kept me from really going forward in the business bank account is I am at a point where I'm not making a lot of money from the company semi-intentionally. We didn't need a ton of money to pay our bills. And so what I've been doing is I've been reinvesting back into the company with equipment and purchasing more capability. So for instance, we went ahead and purchased a router and we did finance a piece of that, but we put about 12,000 cash right out of the business at the end of last year into putting that on the floor. I just set up a whole welding rig and I try to buy equipment and reinvest in the business in these early years rather than taking a little more pay for myself, even though I probably could. And the main reason is I like doing things in-house and our margins are better in-house. And so I'm trying to angle to do more in-house. And that's just that's my style and my personality in it. So we are comfortable. I don't worry about paying the bills. I don't worry about, at this point, I don't worry about that. It really is more growth focused.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Stephanie, your thoughts?
Kudos to you, Steve. Comfortably cash positive is a moving target. We've been in for 13 years and there are still moments where we get these huge surges of jobs and it does challenge us occasionally. And you don't want too much cash because you will be taxed on all that. So you do need to reinvest and do different things with it. Initially, just being a couple of weeks ahead of the game felt good. Then it became a month. Now I prefer to have enough that I know that we can ride 3 or 4 months easy if there's any kind of problem. COVID kind of showed us that, although it wasn't a problem. You just need to think of your budget and what does that look like so that you've got reserves, and you might choose to even make that money you have accepted as an owner. I don't know if that's the proper way to do it, but willing to say that that money kind of sets there, and if there was ever a serious urgency. But cash flow is always something you need to watch out for. I think Bob would tell you just a few months into it, we were positive, but he would also tell you a few months later we were negative. So it comes and it goes, and you just have to watch it really, really close. But it's not hard to do. You can do it.
Very good. Thank you, Steph. Dick?
I think if you follow the guidance that Signworld gives you in terms of how to set up your pricing and how to set up your systems and how to buy the materials and you follow that structure, I think you will maintain that cash flow positivity. And I think we started making money, I think after the first few months that we got into business, and I think we haven't looked back since. And again, still, the question is are we making as much as we want? And I think that's always a work in progress. And that's one of the things we're trying to focus on now is how do we increase our profitability and how do we get, I think a best in class net operating profit is 25%. And we're not there. That's ultimately where I want to be. But we're continuing to strive for that and trying to get, push that. If you can get to that point, that would be, to me, a best in class, but I think if you follow the guidance from Signworld, getting to that profitability is something that's very achievable, and I think it's been demonstrated, by hundreds and hundreds of people over the years.
Very good. Thank you, Dick. Jack, your thoughts?
Our average to cash positive is 6 months. People that have customer interface before typically do it sooner. The ones that have been in a cubicle their whole life take a little bit longer. So in addition to the investment, we encourage you that you set aside an amount of money equal to 1 year's worth of living expense, not your W-2 that's pre-tax, not your net income. You hopefully didn't spend it all. But what does it take to put food on the table, gas the car, pay the mortgage? Equal to 1 year. Using some of that to supplement year one, some of it to supplement year two. Hopefully by that time you're back to the corporate income that you were previously.
Very good. Ken, thoughts from you?
I broke even cash on cash in my 3rd month. I took my first paycheck in my 4th month and never looked back. And I agree with what Dick Cassidy said, that if you were to survey most of the Signworld owners who are in business after 2 years, that they're looking at a 25% net cash flow to the owner. So a 25% profit is very, very doable.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. All right, let's go to our next participant. Janae, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question for the group today.
Yep, Janae from Dakota Dunes, South Dakota. We're new in the process, so appreciate all of you joining this call. Question is, how did you get your first customer or your first sale? And maybe walk us through that process.
All right, very good. Let's start with you, Stephanie. Thinking back, way back when, 18 years ago, how'd you get your first customer?
Before we opened, before we had our building, it was somebody we knew, and certainly the people will be a big part of that. And then from there, it was networking events and just letting people know what we do and having confidence.
It was a little different back then with the yellow pages and not having websites. So
that is true.
Yes,
yeah, yellow
definitely.
pages are long gone.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Dick, how about you?
Well, I got my first customer long before we opened our doors, and that was from a contact I had in my previous life. So I think that's once we got our website up and running, we were getting calls immediately, and that's continued to build ever since then. So
did you do any networking activities, Dick? Any chamber or Rotary or anything like that?
Well, I did go to a Chamber of Commerce once, and I did go to a BNI once, but honestly, I couldn't. I started kind of right around when COVID hit, so that kind of went away, and we were too busy keeping up with our web leads, and so to be honest with you, I didn't do that much. I know that's
okay.
So
that's all right.
Yeah.
It's all good. Everyone has their own journey. Very good. Steve, how about you?
So technically our first customer was my church. So from my own personal network, and they're still a customer of ours, although not the largest profit customer in our books. To be really honest with you, the bulk of our first year business came right off the website. The phone rang as fast as I could pick it up, and the web leads came in as fast as I could answer them back. And to this day, I'm trying to get to a spot where I can keep up with my website. And again, I know some of that's market-based, but I just never could 100% keep up with the website. The leads just kept coming in. Our web marketing partner does a great job. So that's the main of it. Similar to Dick, I attended a couple BNI chamber meetings just to get to know them. I attempted to join a BNI group and they turned me down for a technicality. And to be really honest with you, I am glad that I didn't get into that, because the weekly and monthly commitments, I found that if I answered my web leads, I would make way better money by the hour than sitting in a BNI chat. And that's just my market. I know guys on my mastermind call who have built their business around Chamber of Commerce and BNI. So to some degree, I recognize that it's market-based, but for me, it's website. And then I will say that our ability to grow by double from last year to this year we are at about 50% repeat customers from what we gained in our first year. and our website grew us again by about 250 this year. And so that's where the most of our leads are coming from, is website, and then the growth is from retention of good customers.
Yeah, 50% repeat after 2 years is pretty good. So fantastic work there. Nice job. Jack, how about you? What's your thoughts?
Before I answer, I'm going to start showing several slideshows that go on in the background while we continue talking. There's no audio to them. The first slideshow, we show you some of the facilities inside and out, so you can see what Signworld operations look like. Second slideshow will show you what is a sign, not only what you'll make in-house with your own startup equipment, but what you'll outsource from the other projects you're able to do, as well as the third part of that slideshow showing you some things you wouldn't even think of as a sign. The third slideshow goes to some of our wall of fame, showing you some of the larger projects that Signworld have done as it develops. So I'll let that play in the background while we continue to talk. Realize, or we hope, that the internet is going to drive the great majority of the new leads, but not being complacent, not waiting for that to do it in case the website starts a little bit slower. We're going to give you 56 different activities that can be done, none of which include knocking on the door, to start generating those first leads, to get the first 10 in the first month, the first 15 in the second month, and 20 the third month, etc. Some of it's reaching out to the contact base you already know, not selling them a sign, but just saying, if you have a project, I can manage projects. Very much of a consultative soft sell. Next is enjoying the Chamber of Commerce, the networking group, the Rotary Club. And most Signworlds will tell you that a lot of their original business came from that until the website kicked in, and by the end of the first year, they don't have time to do networking. Over the next couple of years, it's repeat referral business that's going to drive the majority of what the internet doesn't drive. None of it cold calling.
Very good. Thank you. Ken, any thoughts from you?
My first order was from a neighbor in the complex that I was in. I was setting up the business, not even up and running, and they walked in and placed an order.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's go to our next participant. Scott, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with the question for the group today.
Hi, this is Scott. Again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to join you today. I actually had my call with Jean yesterday, so it's I've had one day to digest all of this wonderful news. I'm from New Jersey, Central New Jersey. I know there's a couple other owners from Signworld that live in the same area. I actually have questions for every single one of you, but since I'm only allowed one question, I'd like to know, now that there's some people that are established for a couple of years, there's some that have been in for decades, what is the most difficult part of your job today? What is the part of your job that stresses you out today?
Okay, pretty simple question. Probably more difficult answer, but let's go ahead with it. Dick, let's start with you. What's your most difficult challenge you're facing in your business today?
I would say it probably has to do with personnel, and it has to do with getting here, getting everybody, to be, engaged and bringing their A game every day and all day long, having their A game here. Because I think when they bring their A game to work and they focus on it and they think through things, then they can be very effective and very productive. I think it's the challenge is the number of times that happens is the biggest challenge. And that would be the thing I probably, and I don't really get too stressed out about it. It's just kind of, that's probably the thing that if there's one thing that is outside of my control, I can't control people. I can only guide them and lead them. So that's my 2 cents.
Very good.
And Dick, you only have 7 employees? I mean, you plus 6?
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
And you're doing 1.8 million in sales, yeah?
Yeah, but we outsource, a fair bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Steve, how about you? Biggest challenge in the business for you today?
Staffing, and from a different perspective. So I'm finding that we get busy and my first move is to go help make signs. And I just know that that is not the right move. And so right now I'm working at adding, I want like a half project manager, half sign production person. Because I just know that I'm at a spot right now where I'm getting too much working in the business and I'm not working on the business. I have some things that are key for us in growth the next year, like getting our policies and procedures nailed down and getting a little more corporate as we go to grow. And I just know that the key to that is getting me off of the equipment and off of the installs and at my desk strategizing and building. And that's the biggest challenge that I have right now. That's my biggest growth opportunity right now.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Stephanie, how about you?
I have to say that hiring is my biggest challenge as well. However, Signworld has helped me with that recently. I chose to go with one of their vendors that they presented an opportunity with us. Career Plug has been a blessing. They have found people that I could not find on my own. I thought I was doing things. They've got some little magical things that they're doing, and it's pulled up a few people that we're excited about, because if you keep doing it the same way, you get the same people. So you have to constantly change how you're doing it. And I was kind of in that rut where I'm seeing the same people over and over again. So that's been nice. I'd say the other thing, I'm reiterating what both of you said. I promise I'm not copying, but the policies and procedures, the working on your business. I wouldn't say it's horribly, it's been challenging to get to that point to be able to do that. If you can do that in your first couple of years, like both of you gentlemen are working on, certainly what a blessing. We've had them in place, but they could be better. Our safety book that was, 25 pages and then a mishmash of folders and videos and things is now, I think, 150 pages and very detailed and organized in a different way. And what we've recently started doing is Tuesday is Tooltip Tuesday. There's always a tooltip. This is like 5 minutes or less. Wednesday is Safety Wednesday, so a safety thing gets covered. And then Thursday is, what did we call it? I've forgotten what we called it. It's team building kinds of stuff, but we will cover EOS, our handbook, and our values. And so we're doing that at least once a year. And different people will help us do that. It's just quick little blurbs that kind of help us stay on task, on culture, allowing us to remind ourselves of who we are and sticking with those core things that make us unique.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Jack?
In the beginning, it's getting customers to make sure the staff is full and busy. From there, it goes to managing what you've committed to make sure that you're getting the projects done on time, on schedule, without having rework, without having redos, without having to schedule overtime, which is expensive. But along the way, as Steph and Steve have talked about, it's the continuing working on the business, making sure that no matter what level you're at, from beginner to mid-range to senior, that your process and procedures are in place, to making sure that the business is running because of what you've built, not because of what you're doing.
Very good. Ken, thoughts from you?
Finding the time in your busy day to go after the next biggest customer is the hard part.
Very good. Thank you for that. All right, let's go to our last participant. Bhavin, if you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your question.
Hey guys, I'm Bhavin. I am from Allentown, Pennsylvania at the moment. And my background is engineering, so I always think of a lot of things and make a mistake. So my question to you all is, obviously from the beginning, until the day you got here, I'm pretty sure you guys would have made some mistakes on the way. And what would you do differently so that we can learn from, obviously your mistakes and not try to make them ourselves?
Very good. Stephanie, did you make any mistakes along the way?
Am I still making them? Yeah. We try and encourage our team that, you know, it's okay to make mistakes, but don't make them over and over again. And that's a tricky thing to do in the custom sign business because you're not making the same thing every single day. We've said before, we should have spent more time in the beginning on pricing software and setting things up. I would really dedicate some time to that and making sure that you feel good about where that's at. That's the basis of everything you do, I would say. That, and we bought a phone system that we probably shouldn't have. 3 years into it, we were rebuying something else. There's all those little, you know, the accountant we first started with wasn't the best. It took us 3 tries before we got it right. There's always stuff.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Dick, how about you?
I'd say the biggest thing that I would have, if I had to do it all over again, I would have bought the property of where I'm at instead of leasing it. But at the time, had never sold a sign and had never made a sign and had no idea if I could even sell a sign. So I was a little bit, and I dumped a fair bit of money into Signworld and the equipment and things like that. But in hindsight, I wish I'd have bought the property that I'm currently leasing, because it's worth a lot right now. And I had a chance to buy it, so that was my biggest mistake.
Okay, very good. Steve, how about you?
So there were several things that came to mind, but they could all kind of be summed up under, I think I should have had a bigger business mentality from day one. Coming from my little trucking company, I was really inclined to have a small business mentality. But from what Stephanie said, from day one, I should have set up with an excellent accountant instead of trying to do it myself. I should have been more aggressive in my pricing, like the bigger sign shops, because I think I would have closed more business last year if I would have priced higher. And I know that sounds crazy. From day one, setting up all of the software and setting up project management, I should not have done it word of mouth, me talking to my sign maker from day one. I wish I would have done it more big business, more corporate, more organized. Just all of those setup items, I wish I would have done a little more corporate and a little more big business minded, because I feel like I probably could have done more last year and this year had I have approached it that way day one, rather than running it a little bit more like a small business through year one. And I know to some degree, it's easy to go back, hindsight's 2020, but I know some of those things I just needed to do myself and learn the hard way, to outsource them and let people that do it well do it. But yeah, that's it. Just day one, big business. If somebody can do it for less than $100 an hour, like your accounting, then hire an accountant. The installers, if I could pay an installer less than $100 an hour, I should not be out there on a ladder. So just that mentality, I think, would have saved me a lot of those lessons that I'm still kind of working past right now.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Jack, your thoughts?
You know, there's a lot of good lessons to learn. That's why we're constantly working at it. But I really believe in many ways the internet is not only our best friend, bringing us all the leads, it's our worst enemy. We're so busy chasing the next stranger that we're not cultivating the customers that already believe in us, that have other departments at their business that we're not taking care of, that have other contacts that they have in life that they're not introducing us to. No customer should be a dead end. And if we'd leverage this business more rather than chasing the next internet lead, we'd probably have a bigger collectively business than we'd have otherwise. So it's working more strategically on the business rather than working transactionally.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. Ken, your thoughts?
When you're busy, raise your prices. If you raise your prices 20% and 20% of your customers go away because you're charging too much money, with the 80% that'll pay the 20% more, you're still going to make more money and have less time involved. Raise your prices. Everybody else is.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ken. All right, we've got time for one more question. So at the very bottom of your Zoom window, you can raise your hand. The first participant that raises their hand, we're going to give the chance. Oh, Bob, and you were fast. If you can go ahead with the next question.
I've been the buzzer, huh? So
good.
One quick question I have. I know there's 3 phases to you guys. this process and then making this and then installation. Fourth phase, which is, for example, the question is in two sections. One, what is the biggest sign? Again, I'm not saying that you went and installed it, but I'm just saying, what's the biggest sign you made? And then was there any service that's got to retain that customer, obviously for them to come back to you again and again, but basically servicing that sign, like let's say if it's something to do with electricity, the bulb goes out, that would you go back and have your contractor or your employee go and service the sign?
Okay. So Steve, biggest sign you've made, and do you do servicing of signs as well?
I mean, just a second, just to ponder that one. Biggest sign that I've made. So I will say we don't do lit electrical signage in-house on a big scale yet. There's some things with our contractor's license that we need to grow into there. So most of our exterior and large signage is vinyl or stationary lettering, and really it just doesn't require a lot of service. The materials are going to be what they're going to be, and they're going to last however long they're going to last in the UV. That's really it. So we have not fought with that, where we have customers constantly bringing us back for issues and service. I will say, kind of riding the line on what we're capable of in our licensing, we have refaced several large monument signs, and we've done fluorescent bulb to LED retrofits, and they're extremely simple. And if anything, when you go from fluorescent to LED, the customer is going to enjoy a much more reliable sign. And so we've done now 6 of those for the same property management company this year. And again, I feel like they will call us less than they called their previous sign company, due to the fact that we've gone from ballast and fluorescence to direct drive LED lamps. The other thing is, to some degree, whenever we do electrical signage like that and we're outsourcing it, I rely on my vendors, my installers, for that warranty work. So in particular, one of them guarantees his work for 5 years, and I have that in writing from him. And so if I have an issue with that sign and we sold it with a particular brand of ballast or a particular brand of power supply and a particular brand of LED, it's 5 years, no questions asked. He's supposed to go back out there and fix that sign at no cost to me or the customer. And I pay him a little more than my other installers whenever I think that that's going to be a valuable selling point. So I hope that's a help to you.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Dick, your thoughts?
The biggest sign, you're asking about the biggest sign we've done, is 9 foot tall letters that were 50 feet wide. And we did that in Fort Worth, and then they did another one in Florida for an aerospace company. So we did one here, and then that allowed us to get a second sign from them in Florida that actually got featured on TV, by the way. So that was kind of fun. And then in the question you had asked about servicing, is that the second question? Yep. And what was the question about servicing? What do we do?
Do you service the customers, and does it lead to repeat business?
Yeah, so we basically always take care of whatever we sell, right? And so if something goes wrong, we'll own that until the customer's happy, really, at the end of the day. And we have all of our subcontractors that do all of our electrical sign installations will stand behind their products and that as well. So it's we've only been in business for a little less 2.5 years, right? So we haven't had a lot of things that have hasn't been a lot of long-term issues, at least not yet, knock on wood. So we've had to fix a wrap here and there because of some air bubbles, or the client didn't take care of their vehicles or something like that. But that's about it. Hasn't been a huge issue or a huge problem or anything like that.
Very good. Thank you, Dick. Stephanie, how about you?
We have a 1-year warranty. You're exactly right in that it's the electrical stuff that usually you're going to be checking. It's usually a ballast. Those, depending on how long they're running those through the day or not, are going to last 2 to 4, maybe 5 years. And we can replace those. We have done the retrofitting. That's a possibility. We do have a couple of electricians that will go out and troubleshoot things for us as well. Largest job that I can think of right off are some of our monuments, and I think they've been about 25 feet high. If you include the foundation and stuff, maybe a little higher than that. Inside stuff, there isn't much that can go wrong. I would be careful to make sure that your warranty does not over promise lots of things. Shouldn't, you know, an act of God when a tornado comes through, or the landscaping people hit it with their mower, those are not things that you're obliged to fix. People will blame you for all sorts of things that are obviously not a part of what you did. Taking pictures when they're done may be important so that it's clear.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Ken, any thoughts from you?
90% of my business, the signs were 18 inches by 24 inches or smaller. The largest sign I ever did was an outdoor channel letter sign, 3 feet high, approximately 10, 12 feet long. Ongoing service of the channel letter signs that I sold over the years, my supplier, my installer, my subcontractor took care of those electrical problems quickly and efficiently at little to no cost to the customer. So ongoing service was never ever an issue. I never made big signs, never needed to. I was so busy making little signs, didn't have to go out and do all the big stuff.
Well, signs have gotten a lot bigger since 1988, right, Ken?
Yes, they have, but still, as someone pointed out, 98% of all the signs in the world are inside the building. Usually those are not that big. 18 inches by 24-inch posters are small.
Yeah, very good. Stephanie, did you have something to add?
I did want to say something. It's kind of interesting for us in our market here. There are several companies that focus mostly on channel letters, outside things, and they're racing to the bottom in prices. So our margins are not as high on those things. If we focus on doing those, it makes my line for the year go up and up and up, because channel letters may cost me $4,000+, and it takes a lot of little signs to add up to that. But my margins are better on those high-end interior things that I do. So it kind of depends on your market and what it's like and what kind of profitability you get on those things. So you've got to decide. Sometimes somebody, you know, making 4 million, their margins are much smaller than somebody making $1 million. And does it all even out? Sometimes it does. So don't be fooled by us just, you know, throwing out great big numbers all the time. You can be very profitable and not be a super huge $10 million company.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those thoughts, Stephanie. All right, I see we are past the hour, and I want to be mindful of our owners' time. Thank you, Stephanie, Steve, and Dick, so much for joining our session today and sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. We really do appreciate each of you. As for our guests, we appreciate you joining into our call today. We look forward to those future conversations with you as you continue to explore to see if Signworld's the right fit for you in the next chapter in your lives. So with that, we'll conclude our session today. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, everyone.